Okay, I am here with Travis today. I'm going to let him introduce himself and let us know about his job title.
Hi guys, I'm Travis. I'm the assistant visiting clubhouse manager for the Minnesota Twins. What that means is we handle all the visiting teams that come into Target Field, from coordinating food, laundry, equipment, unpacking, packing, and everything they kind of need while they're here at Target Field during the Twin season.
Thanks, Travis. And how did your school path lead you to this career path? Was it a straight and non-bumpy road, or was it bumpy and did it have a few forks in it?
Definitely not a straight path. So I went to school at Concordia in St. Paul. I was an undergrad in Kines and sports management. I ran track and cross country. I got my master's in sports management there as well. Was a graduate assistant for the baseball team. So jumped from track and cross country to baseball. I also worked in the athletic department throughout my time at Concordia, from event staff with Tommy Maurer to being a marketing intern with the assistant AD Brian Jamros at the time, to kind of doing whatever it was they needed. And then started to take into other different things. I started doing game ops with Birch Tech during the time the Vikings were playing at TCF. Then I did an internship with the Northern Sun for a year during the 25th anniversary. So starting to do ops and learning more compliance stuff and how the actual conference office worked. Applied for a million different jobs inside college athletics. Got turned down, was finalist for some, got turned down. I got hired and was the director of athletics for ops at Concordia Portland for a year before coming back to work for the Twins. So I actually got my start in the clubhouse area with the Vikings through people I know, just helping out, and kind of just gained the respect and got on the staff from just kind of climbing the ranks of over time. And then a bat boy job opened up with the Twins, and I kind of hopped into that role knowing through networking. I won't say my education didn't help me get there, because a lot of the stuff I knew or got to use, I got to practice right away. So a lot of stuff I was learning through my undergrad and my master's, I was able to apply while working, which was awesome. So my route was not necessarily a streamline, but definitely able to take a lot of different parts into it. So
No, totally. And I think that's very important for students to hear, that you're not going to be guaranteed a job, especially if you want to work with the pros upon graduation, but it is a lot of networking and elbow rubbing. And if you can get started in your own school's athletic department, I think a lot of people find success there, because then they meet people who know people who know people, because it's a large industry, but it is a small industry too. So people have connections. And if you think the college level is for you, you can stay there. If you're ready to go up to a professional level, you can stay there. So what I hear you saying is that it's definitely one job built on itself, or, they built on each other, but then it's also who knows who and who can put in a good word for you, really.
yeah, 100%. Well, we kind of always had the saying, or at least like former baseball coach or AD Lunch used to always say, it's not who you know, but who knows you in networking. And to go into deeper in that, I guess, is not who knows you, but what they know about you or what they're going to say about you. Because what happens is, hey, I have a job opening. Oh, okay. Hey, I have a kid for you. Okay, well, what do you know about him? Well, he's a hard worker. He or she is a hard worker. They're diligent. They're detail oriented, or he's really good when he's there. Well, okay, well, that's a red flag, because a lot of people in the sports industry aren't going to lie about their recommendations. And that's probably every industry, just because at some point I'm going to need that person that I'm giving the reference for. And so if I give them a bad reference on a kid or a person and that doesn't work out, well, they're going to be like, oh, well, this is the person who set me up with them and it wasn't great, so I'm really not going to take his opinion on it. And not to scare people, like, that's just kind of what it is. So like, people are going to tell them the truth about, okay, like, no, this person's great for this role, or hey, like, this person's really good, but he needs to work on this and this. And that's not to scare people off, but that's, I mean, at least like when thinking about people for certain positions or like bringing up their name, those are the things like they start thinking about.
And that's the nature of the job. I would hope that by the time people are watching this video within sport management or kinesiology, they know that they're not going to find a typical 9 to 5 job where bare minimum is enough, right? Because the only thing you have is your reputation, and you have to be ready to work hard, say yes to things that you maybe are not interested in doing right away, to get that experience and to show people that you are an eager learner.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. When I was in Portland as one of the director of ops, I was with our AD and we were folding T-shirts and stuff. She goes, "We have master's degrees and we're literally folding T-shirts and like making like cutting things out for posters and stuff like that and arts and crafts." And they're like, yeah, both of us, have higher education and we're doing small little things that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not just me doing it. That was our athletic director, who's far and away above where I was at the time.
Right.
Even in my job now, like, yeah, I have, a little more seniority and stuff, but there's times where like I'm cleaning up or restocking toilet paper in the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
or cleaning up a spill that someone spilt in the clubhouse, and doing some of the smaller stuff, or taking out garbages that are leaking on a daily basis that aren't glamorous by any means. Sports is one thing that a lot of people love the idea of, but it is a lot of night and weekends, and you do miss some things. I've missed bachelor parties, I've missed weddings, because of my role, which is tough. But then there's also very good perks of, and cool things that you get to do that other people don't. So
Right, totally. So speaking of cool things that you get to do, what does a typical, not even day look like, but do you have, the Twins obviously have a season, but do you feel like you have a season to your job? Are there highs and lows and ebbs and flows? What might a typical week look like? Who are you talking to? Who are you,
yeah,
working
so
with? What does that look like?
I'm gonna actually just kind of run through the season in general.
Perfect.
Um, I'm gonna start from January 1. So January is a little slower. We'll start to like inventory all of our new equipment and stuff for the home team, for the Twins. So all of our new undershirts, jerseys, pants, all the helmets, all that stuff has got to get inventoried and get ready to be shipped to spring training. Um, and then we'll pack the truck towards the end of January, start of February, and send that down to Fort Myers. And then in February we go to spring training, so get to spend 2 months in Fort Myers, which sounds like a vacation. It is one of the harder parts of the year. People like to think we're sitting on the beach, but in terms of like our staff, we probably in between 6 and 7 a.m. and leaving around 5 to 7 p.m. depending on the day. And it's pretty much every day through those 2 months, except for maybe 1 or 2 off days. And even then, like the off days always come up with something. You're either packing the truck to go back home, or something comes up where you're doing something. So it's definitely a grind there. But it's kind of a cool experience. It's kind of a rev up to the season, and then the season kind of, I don't want to say is easier, but it's a little less of a grind in a sense. Because once we get to the season, I don't travel with the team. So when the Twins are home, I'm working. When the Twins are on the road, I really don't have much going on, which is awesome, because then I get to enjoy some of the summer. I get to do some of the funner things of, going out on the boat with family or going to see people. So going into the season or going into a homestand, we reach out to the equipment guy and travel secretary, and typically their nutritionist. Our chef on our side has a list of all the restaurants we use to cater in food, and kind of has his own little menus that he sends to their nutritionists. And then we kind of help them order their food that'll be delivered during the time they're there. So they get 3 meals a day, typically for a night game. And then we help coordinate the truckers coming in. So they'll ask us what trucking company we typically use to help pick up their luggage from the airport and then bring it to the stadium or to the hotel, or both. Actually, normally both. And so then their truck comes in and we bring it in, we unpack it. If they came from the road, we have to do all the laundry from that game, wash it, clean it, and get it into their lockers. So it's all set up. So by the time they come in that first day, everything's set and ready to go. So typically for a 7-10 game, I get in around 10:30, 11. And kind of start to do, I call it putts. Like I just do little things and kind of get things ready. So start the coffee and just kind of ease into my day. And just organize lockers, make sure everything's good. We'll get the first round of food sometime around there too, where we'll put that out. So food's ready to go as soon as guys get in, or coaches. Typically the first people that are in are the athletic trainers and coaches. Athletic trainers will come in and set up their training room and stuff. Coaches like to get their like office spaces kind of set up so they can start doing their scouts and stuff and getting things ready. And then it kind of, guys will start to trickle in, around noon, 1, depending. And then they go out for BP and we'll flip the food over, clean up the kitchen. And then as they come off from BP, we'll clean up the shoes, collect laundry, kind of do whatever we need to do to get them or help them to get ready. And then they go out for the game and we redo it all again. So we'll have post-game meal coming in. So we'll clean the kitchen, get that ready to get post-game set up, and then pass out all their BP laundry, clean up the space. And then post-game is where it kind of gets hectic a little bit. So post-game, we collect shoes. 2 of our guys will knock out cleaning shoes. And then we'll be collecting laundry and then scrubbing jerseys and cleaning jerseys. They don't get a fresh new jersey every game. So getting pine tar, sliding stains, grass stains, blood stains, you name it, off of uniforms. And then, so by the end of the day, it's probably roughly between 12 and 1, depending on how long the game goes. We've had delays where I've been there 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Or team clinches and they're here celebrating a little bit and you're here waiting for guys. You get out there at 4 in the morning and you're back in. So then sometimes, so most of the time it's 2 night games and then a day game on getaway day. So then day game is at 12:10 and I typically get in at 7. So there's times where I'll leave the ballpark at 1 and be in at 6:45, 7 a.m. and, then work till 6 p.m. that day. So getaway day is a little busier. So instead of like just putting out laundry, we got to pack all their bags and get it ready. Typically leaving out, stuff that they could use to shower or get ready to leave. And then they'll pack that up and we'll help get that on the truck for them to leave. So that's kind of our typical days.
Mm-hmm.
And then that goes from April to October, possibly November, depending on playoffs. And then you have the All-Star break kind of in the middle there in July. So that's the season. And then from, let's say we don't make postseason or we do make postseason, once that's over, we kind of get a lull of like not a lot going on. So we kind of take that time to get away, see families during the holidays. We might have a couple things here and there to come in and do. We'll clean up our spaces and winterize it, if you will, or
Mm-hmm.
clean it up for the winter. But then we kind of, take some time off. And then January starts up again.
Yeah, very cyclical. This is so fascinating for me. I had no idea that people did this kind of stuff. Did you know that this was even a job option? I mean, like, how does somebody fall into something like this?
So yes and no. So like most people automatically think like the equipment manager,
Right.
which is awesome. Like that's eventually what I hope to end up doing. Which at the time, if you would ask me out of high school, I would have been like, nah, I don't, whatever. Didn't
Yeah.
really think about it. To be honest, like I thought, being a sports agent would have been the coolest thing coming out of high school. And then started to like research a little more and realize what they were. And I was like, yeah, that's not for me. And I really don't want to go in athletic training. So I was looking more of like college athletics, working in like marketing or ops and being an AD and then it was like conference office is really cool, like running championships. I love all that stuff. That's the exciting type of time. That's where that's everyone's goal, like win championships, be in championships. So really didn't think about this part of it. And then started to work the sideline on the bikes, doing this stuff and really got into it. And then it was like, I fell back. Like I said, I left being a bat boy here and took a job in college athletics and then came back. So I kind of work like if you will, a high school teacher type of schedule, except my off seasons during the winter versus the summer.
Right. Right. Yeah. And what would you say that you have learned professionally and personally from, not only this position, but being able to evolve and see how athletics works in many different ways? I think you're exactly right. People think they want to be a sports agent or an AD, but they don't see all the behind the scenes people that make that magic happen for them. So what have you learned in the time that you've been away from school, both personally and professionally, about the industry?
There's a lot of different things you could go off in tangents about there. Well, I I was thinking about this the other day, and everyone like thinks about professional sports, but professional sports, D1, like big D1, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, when you look at the athletic department, it's a business,
Hmm.
and all of them have the same parts going on. It's just a matter of how detailed they get broken down, if that makes sense. So here, like, we're a part of the baseball operations department, but we're fully focused on like player ops or equipment side. Now we have our analytics people who are baseball ops, but they're strictly the numbers side. And, we have a marketing department, and they're working solely focused on just marketing this, where like at college or at like a D1, and I've never been on a D1 scale, just coming from what I've heard is like, okay, you have a marketing department, and that might be broken into, okay, this person's working on football and some other sport. It
Right.
might be
Right.
track, or this person, and it depends on the school. So like a bigger school, like a big D, like big Power 5 football school, they might have a bunch of people working on football, and they break off and work on, track, cross country, swimming, whatever it is. And then a school like Duke, where your basketball is your money maker, probably, you know, their probably marketing department focuses a little more on basketball and then football, and then breaks down. And then they also have a department for sponsorship and revenue and game operations, and their department has multiple people. And then as you get into D2, it's one or two people,
Right.
or one person, depending on the size. Or NAIA, it's the same thing. And I think I learned that from working in college athletics at the D2 level. Like, no, we're also doing this, and this. They just do it at a for a bigger department, and it's more individualized or
Hmm.
specialized, if you will.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one thing you kind of learn when you start to do it. I think you start to learn, at least in my role, that like it helps that I'm older than I feel like 90% of the athletes now. Like that they are just human, and they're normal people, and they have everyday lives, and
Yeah.
they go through the same struggles we do with not just work, life. Um, so like they're still trying to figure out stuff too with their job. Their job just happens to be a game. And you also realize that like it's a business. Like I've seen guys come from being on the mound to being completely released, and knowing that like this guy's being sent out before the player even knows they're being sent out. So like you realize that like some of it is it is a business in a sense. You kind of get some of that. Not to say there's great relationships built between coaches, people all the time, but then there sometimes it comes down to like, hey, like at the end of the day, we're trying to win a World Series, or we're trying to set ourselves for something else, or
Hmm.
whatever it may be. And that's not just baseball; that's everywhere.
Right. Right. No, I think that totally makes sense. It's glamorized and glorified, but you don't see it is a business. It's about making money, and there's operations teams that hopefully, if everything's flowing smoothly, it all clicks together and it all works. But that takes some trial and error, finding the right people in the right spots, which includes the players on the team. So yeah.
100%, and
Yeah.
not even just the player side, but like each department has a team base in morale in it. At least that's how I look at it.
Right.
Like our department, we work really well together because we all get along. So like our chemistry is really good, and
Hmm.
that's what makes our clubhouse run efficiently. But there's other clubhouses that don't have that cohesiveness, that may not work as well as ours does. And I'm not saying we're the best by any means, but it just makes our work life a lot easier. And I think that can go for not just sports, but enjoying the people you're around is huge because you spend so much time with them.
Of course, of course. That's a perfect segue into my next question. So students can come out of Concordia with book knowledge, right? Like they can have sport management knowledge and knowledge of sport law and facilities planning and all of that stuff, but you need the soft skills as well. So you can know everything from a book, you can have your stats memorized, but if you can't work with others and or figure out like what are the social norms here, that's going to be a detriment. So what would you have for any thoughts or advice on like how do you make yourself stand out when everybody's coming away with a degree, according to their diploma, they have a degree in sport management, but that doesn't mean much if they can't walk the walk.
Right. Well, that's where like I feel like working in your college athletic departments and getting out and working in multiple things. There's always internships, there's always like volunteering, just get experience, like all the different events that go on, the 5Ks. It doesn't have to be professional or college sports. Like there's community sports, there's rec sports, like all that you can tailor into like college sports, professional sports. They all intertwine because it's the same general basis of your sports management stuff for the most part, or for all parts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what you're doing and where you're doing it, how it's being done. And there you get to work with people and you get to see how people work and how people treat people. And so you get to kind of see how things flow and what worked, what didn't work. And that's a positive and negative. This works great. I'm going to copy that. Okay, I didn't like how he treated me for this, so I'm not going to do that, or I won't do that. And I think taking away that is huge in any industry, because at the end of the day, like big picture minus sports, like people like to be around like people that are good people. So like if you're like work your butt off and are really nice to people and help people and aren't a dick,
Mm-hmm.
like, and people are going to remember that and be like, oh, this kid was awesome. Like, like even on his bad days, he was a good person. Like at the end of the day, like I could go this way. At the end of the day, what are people saying about you when you're gone? Because
Right.
when you go to like, when you have your funeral, like people are not going to be like, oh, he put up 50 points against so-and-so. They're going to be like, dude, that guy was a great teammate. That guy, whatever you needed, he could go to you. Or, hey, like when I was down, he was the first person to be there. Or what kind of legacy are you leaving? I guess that's a way deeper comment than I thought about, like getting into this interview. But yeah, like, and that could go just how you present yourself to anyone everywhere.
Totally. And I will say also having been in plenty of sports admin situations, nobody's too good to pick up the trash, right? Like people remember that kind of stuff. If you're a person who walks by and they're like, I'm not going to pick up that trash because that's below my job grade, the facility looks crappy then. And so you definitely, people are watching whether they're watching or not. So the small things that you can do, don't fake it, but like have that be part of your authentic self.
That's a great segue a little bit into what I was thinking, because about my second year in being down here, one of the assistant equipment managers, we were sitting on the bench just talking, and he goes, you know what? Every day down here is an audition. And it kind of resonated with me because in the sports world, especially in like this side, you don't know which bench coach or which equipment manager is going to go where and when he's going to need an assistant, or when they're going to need an equipment guy or trainer or traveling secretary or nutritionist that goes somewhere and they're like, oh, we need an equipment guy. Oh, well, this guy's really good, or he's always doing this, and like they all talk. So like everyone knows a little bit about, what they get when they're going to be in here. And sometimes they have like knowledge that like, okay, this is a clubhouse that, they're a little slower at getting to things, or have a reputation of doing this or whatever, which is good and bad. Like, and sometimes you shock them and they're like, oh, we had an instance where we're like, yeah, their trainers are really high maintenance. And so we come in with the notion of like, they're going to be really high maintenance or whatever. And then we started to work with them and we're like, they were great. We had no problems with them. And it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? It's probably because the way we handle things early, where we communicated early and asked them about things early that made it easier. So it wasn't like they interrupted us at our bad times or
Right.
our busy times. So I don't know, sometimes you get some of those feedbacks or those, hey, they're really needy or whatever. And it could have just be like, well, like maybe we just had it set up better or whatever and got
Right.
it done.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So always be ready for everything, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Right. Or like take everything as if it is an audition because you don't know who's
Right.
watching.
Right. Exactly. Travis, how do you stay professionally relevant? Are there magazines and periodicals you read? Are there, associations that you can be involved in for your own professional development? What does that look like so that you stay, knowledgeable about the sports industry?
That's a good question because I haven't thought much of those. I like sports in general and I like all sports for the most part. So I follow along through like just watching sports and like social media around sports. And so you kind of know what's going on. I do, the front office like website is great for just stories to see what's I guess current topics in terms of sports management.
Mm-hmm.
There is a like equipment manager certification. I don't have it. I follow them on LinkedIn. I follow them on Twitter. We haven't required it, but a lot of colleges in terms of college equipment managers require you to get it within the first year or have it.
Okay.
So it's something I've looked at and I've thought about getting, but haven't actually gone and done it. I have no opposition of doing it. If I were told, hey, you got to get it, I'd be like, great, okay, done. So that's kind of how I guess I stay relevant in stuff. I think part of it is staying connected with people that I've worked with in the past as well. So you talk about networking and you meet people and that's great. Okay, I met this person. I now have them in my network. Well, yeah, they know who you are, but like I said, who knows you? So like actually building that connection that you met, that network, or I'll call it a connection because it's not a network until you know the person and really know the person, right? So like building that relationship. So like our sports info person that was at Concordia in Portland when I was there, I still talk to. I check in with him. Hey, how are you? How are you doing? Our pastor from there, I do. Our AD from there, I do. And there's times where like people slip through the cracks and you haven't reached out, and then all of a sudden there's like, hey, like I haven't talked to you for a while. I kind of need this, and it happens. But like trying to keep those connections going and build those relationships. And it doesn't have to be with some like, I'm not saying I reach out to someone that I wasn't didn't really like. No, but like people I got along with really well. Yeah, I try to stay in contact with them as much as I can.
Yeah. Yep. I'd like to ask you about the student athlete experience. So many of our sport management and exercise science students are student athletes. So they already have a love for the game. And like you said, you just enjoy it in your free time as a leisure opportunity. Do you, and I'm sure your answer is hopefully going to be no, but do you think it's necessary for somebody to have been a student athlete to excel in this field? And if you're not a student athlete and you just like athletics, but you haven't had that, college student athlete experience, how can you still make sure that you're doing the right things?
I'd say no. Like it's not going to hurt you for not
Right.
being an athlete. Because a lot of the stuff we're doing is not necessarily athletic based. It doesn't matter that I can't throw a ball 90 miles an hour. Or I probably can't even throw it 45 miles an hour now. Or you know what I mean? Like you don't have to be athletic to do my job. So no, you don't need to be a post athlete. There's plenty of people who weren't. Um, a lot of it comes down to the knowledge and being able to put it to work and being able to communicate. And that's, I think, and be detail oriented. Does some of it help in understanding other parts of like in my job, I guess, a little bit of understanding like what they go through as an athlete probably helps a little bit, but you don't necessarily need that to build a connection or to build, because my job is really relationship driven. The more I can know someone and relate to them and communicate with them player wise, while they're in the clubhouse, the more comfortable they are, the more enjoyable our clubhouse is. So I don't know if that really answered the question.
Oh, yeah, it totally did. Totally did. Because I think some students are afraid that they don't have an athletic background themselves, so they're already ruling themselves out, or somebody else is going to get a look before they are because they don't have college athletics on their resume.
No, I mean, I think that there's other ways to get what college athletics brings, or even high school athletics, you know, like even if you played high school and didn't play college, like you have the general sense of what teamwork, like those type of things. And if you're looking into getting into sports management, you already have an interest in sports. So you probably understand teamwork. You probably understand what it takes to like compete in some type of sport, I'm assuming. So yeah, I guess my thought is I guess if I was looking at hiring someone, I'm not looking at if they were an athlete or not. I have no, like, great, but it doesn't hold any merit to me at all, I guess, in terms of what we do. And probably wouldn't if I was in a different position, if it was marketing or for an internship for an athletic department. I don't think it would hold any merit to that, other than like looking at what other stuff they've done.
Right. For sure. So my last question for you is, put yourself back in a current student's shoes. You're in the classroom, you're maybe panicking, maybe excited, you're going to be graduating pretty soon. What do you want to tell your former self, or a student who's getting close to graduation, whether it's something you didn't learn in school but learned after the fact, or something they should keep in mind as they pursue a job in the sport management field?
Well, it's hard to, even with like all the experiences I had in undergrad and grad school working in college athletics, like I said, I applied for thousands of different jobs in college athletics and didn't heard back, got an interview, got a second interview where I flew out to a couple different places, had a great second interview, was like, all right, well, let's kind of start to like feel out what the housing market is in case I do get this, because you don't know how it's going to be. And then, hey, we decided to go with a different direction. We really appreciate you. And you kind of get let down, you get bummed out. And then you start to kind of question, like, am I really good enough? Is this the career I want to go into? Is this like, but like, once you get in, it's a lot easier to move around because you have a basis, and you can stay in that job and you can start looking, and you can, okay, I have, it's way easier once you get in. The hardest part is getting in. But if you're really passionate about it, I feel like that's what separates a lot of people who stay in sports is that time framing of like, okay, I got in, and then there's the people that were like, okay, I stopped trying and I refocused in a different direction, and I just needed to get a full-time job, and they did that, and they kind of went there and they stayed there. Not to say they can't go the other route and come back, but I feel like those who like kept doing weird, I don't want to say part-time, but internships and different things in sports, and all end up staying in sports, if that makes any sense. So I would say just keep going, keep getting experiences, keep doing internships, try to do whatever you can to just learn and grow and meet and network, because you never know when people are going to come back and be like, hey, this person was awesome, I need a person for this, or hey, we have this event coming up, I need an extra person to work, can you work? Yeah, I'm free, I'll work the 3M Open or whatever. Like, I just threw out an event, but like, or like, hey, like, USA Football's got the International Bowl, we're looking for some people to go down, it's not going to pay much, but it's going to be an experience. Well, went down for that. This is my own experience. I went down for that, and I met people that I still talk to today that don't work in sports anymore, but like still talk to, and like they have stuff that's going on in different places. So if I ever were to leave somewhere, it's another network base you can touch on.
Yes, totally. Well, this has been very enlightening. I hope that it also has helped you reflect a little bit on your education and where you've gotten. And I want to thank you for sharing this time with the students.
Yeah, no problem.